Reviews of Fast Times at Ridgemont High and Jinxed by Pauline Kael. November 1st, 1982. Watching Fast Times at Ridgemont High, I was surprised at how not bad it is. It may fall into the general category of youth exploitation movies, but it isn't assaultive, and it's certainly likable. The title appears over a shot of a California shopping mall, which makes sense because new California high schools, with their separate buildings for art and music and whatever, are more and more like shopping malls. And the mall is where the Ridgemont kids go right after school, to their jobs. It's also where they spend the money they earn. Fast Times is like the beach party movies at a later stage, as if they'd evolved and gained a higher form of consciousness. What makes it appealing, yet may upset some parents, is that the kids rely on one another. They've gained independence from the adults at home. The kids are there to catch each other after the falls and to console each other. They function as parents for each other. It's not surprising that the movie is a success. For the kids and the audience, the feeling of being in an autonomous world of high school kids must be wonderful. Fast Times isn't like the films about teenage gangs, and it isn't one of those movies that say the kids are smart and the teachers are stupid, as if the only thing that corrupts people is the aging process. It isn't concerned with adults' anxieties about college and careers either. The world of this film is a kids' network, where their choices, whether surfing or studying or just getting stoned, aren't judged. Directed by a young woman, Amy Hecklering, making her feature film debut, the movie has an open, generous tone. Fast Times follows the course of several kids' lives by means of short takes, vignettes, and montages of gags. There are no big crises in which a boy or girl feels totally alone. If the film has a theme, it's sexual embarrassment. Sex follows the kids up. They seem to know about drugs before they've got into sex. But even sex isn't the kind of problem it used to be. The girls talk about it as a matter of technique that they can learn, and they're hoping to find a boy who's a good lover, though it's obvious that what they'd really like is romance and a boy to hang out with who might turn into a sex partner. They manage to be fairly humorous about their miserably botched attempts at coupling. When the 15-year-old Stacy, played by Jennifer Jason Leigh, is worried about not knowing how to perform oral intercourse, her closest girlfriend, the tall and knowing Linda, played by Phoebe Cates, a luscious specimen of Valley Girl, instructs her, and using a term they probably picked up in class, they discuss the variables. Stacy, proceeding as if she were doing lab work, makes the mistake of experimenting with Mike, played by Robert Romanus, a fast talker who believes that the way to impress women is to have a certain attitude. You never let on how much you like a girl. Act like wherever you are, that's the place to be, and so on. He turns out to be a fast lover, too, a scared, fumbling teenage premature ejaculator. Mike is the most verbal of the kids. The others talk in their own sneering slang. The dialogue throughout seems uncannily accurate. The kids sound as if they were sending each other telegrams, but with every second or third word in italics, and with awesome and bitchin' as the only words of praise. The characters emerge from the gags. Stacy's older brother, Brad, played by Judge Reinhold, a senior, is proud of his finesse behind the counter at the most popular burger joint in the mall, and he takes such pleasure in his car that he washes it with some of the same caressing motions he uses when he's wiping the grease off the griddle at work. Little Ratner, played by Brian Backer, who takes tickets at the movie house in the mall, has a scene so recognizably primal that kids in the audience must squirm for him. The pragmatic Stacy invites him into her room and sits him on the bed next to her, and he's afraid to make a move. Half a dozen or so of the young actors have roles of roughly the same importance, but Sean Penn, in the role of the surfer-doper Jeff Spicoli, becomes the film's star. He has the kind of talent that bites you on the nose and makes you laugh, and he inhabits his part totally. When the history teacher confiscates a pizza that Spicoli has just had delivered to him in class, he is hurt and astonished. He can't believe it. But you may get the feeling that a moment later he'll have accepted the disciplinary insult as if it were some sort of special attention, a compliment. Spicoli, with his red-rimmed eyes, his tangled yellow hair, and his big, baffled double takes, is the most pleasant stoned kid imaginable. He has a giggle that comes from far inside. In his amiable state, whatever mishaps there are in the world are funny. Sometimes you can see that the ideas in the script, by Cameron Crowe, it's adopted from his book about the year he spent at a California high school, impersonating an adolescent, are potentially better than the way they've been carried out. But Amy Heckerling has a light hand, and the gags that miss don't thud. Some of the jokes may be treated too glancingly. For example, the bit with a classful of students automatically sniffing the solvent on their ditto paper isn't pointed, and it goes a little flat. Yet if this errs, it's in a graceful direction. There's only one really bum scene. On the night of a school dance, Ray Walston, the teacher who seized the pizza, shows up at Spicoli's house to force a history lesson on him. When Heckerling falters at the end of a sketch and the actors are just on the verge of losing their characters, the music, a collection of some 19 pop songs, saves them from humiliation. The music isn't obstreperous, it doesn't underline things, it's just always there when it's needed. In this movie, a gag's working or not working hardly matters. Everything has a quick, makeshift feeling. If you're eating a bowl of Rice Krispies and some of them don't pop, that's okay, because the bowlful has a nice, poppy feeling. Neither the film's bad moments, nor its good ones, stay with you. Jokes such as the "Assassinate Lincoln" buttons that are passed out before the big game between Ridgemont and Lincoln High aren't exactly memorable, but they're not meant to be either, only enjoyable. Jennifer Jason Leigh has a bloom that makes the scenes in which she's a very weary teenager all the more convincing. Heckerling has taste. She doesn't milk pathos out of the rough spots Stacy gets into. She doesn't make a big deal out of things. This is a gentle, blackout-style comedy. At times it's a comedy with an eye for a particular kind of California beauty. There's an evocative shot of Phoebe Cates seen through the lawn sprinklers as she walks toward the camera. Too bad we don't get more of Phoebe Cates' Linda. Stacy is the normal girl of the past, with her biology speeded up, but Linda, who takes all her cues from pop culture, may represent a new, jaded, sullen mood. Nothing causes a light to flicker in her huge, shining eyes, and she doesn't look ahead much. She doesn't seem fully alive, yet the friendship of the two girls, the matter-of-factness of it, is lovely. Linda may not know a whole bunch about sex, but what she knows she shares, and she sees the comedy in her own blank boredom. It has been a while since I saw a movie in which a man's sadistic rottenness was established by having him be mean to a cat. In Jinxed, the mistreater of cats and women is played by Rip Torn, and so the character, a gambling man, has elements of parody built in, but the director, Don Siegel, doesn't pick up on them. He doesn't pick up on much of anything. The star of the film is Bette Midler, as Bonita the cat lover, an entertainer who works in the casinos at Lake Tahoe and Reno. The picture gives Midler one good, frantic routine between the stanzas of a fast, rowdy medley that Bonita is singing on stage, she bumps and grinds her way to the wings, where her lover, played by Ken Wall, a young blackjack dealer, is standing, and she hisses out the procedures of a plan to murder that hateful sadist who has been whacking her around and psyching out the dealer, jinxing him. Bonita does her fast grind back and forth across the stage, delivering a stanza of instructions for every stanza of song without losing her rhythm. The movie is on to something here. Slapstick black comedy with a beat. But it isn't developed. Jinxed goes back to being a grotesque imitation of a screwball romance, and the skinny plot is stretched out to the length of a feature film by such insulting devices as a treasure hunt. Even the movie's Jinxed was lifted from our bad. It has a strong aroma of The Only Game in Town, along with a sprinkling of James M. Cain novels. The battered singer is supposed to be heartsick in the beginning, because the scummy gambler treats her like dirt, and then buoyant at the end, when she's with the decent young dealer. But Siegel doesn't appear to have charted the film's emotional progression. Midler starts out strong and ends up subdued and frazzled. And the relatively inexperienced Wall isn't in the same picture with her. He has no technique to draw upon, nothing to respond with. Ken Wall began acting just a few years ago, and he probably had considerable help from his directors on The Wanderers and Fort Apache, The Bronx. He's cruelly exposed here. The camera seems to zero in on his handsome, clear-eyed face and bare chest just when he's pleading for guidance. He has been turned into a TV-style hunk. Midler has some lines that are real Swifties, and she turns even moderately amusing ones into zingers, but the situations don't go anywhere. And though she has got her spandex pants and her great wiggle walk, her thighs seem to be tied together. And the lewd twinkle in her eyes, she isn't colorful here. She has gone deathly blonde. The platinum hair bleaches out her rosiness and her radiance. She needs the soft, blurry warmth of pink and orange and gold. And with her hair whitened, her face seems to lose its planes, to be flattened out. She has said that making this film was the worst experience of my entire life, and you can just about touch the tense, drawn face muscles. Though Midler's speciality is being smart and on top of things, Bonita is a silly ditz, the type of helpless dumb blonde whose affectations Midler, as a stage performer, usually satirizes. And the character has been so thinly conceived that all Midler can do is play comic mannerisms. She's drawing upon externals only, shtick. That's what Goldie Hawn had to do in pictures such as Foul Play, but it may be riskier for Midler. The cartoon mannerisms she resorts to are extreme, and her energy level has to be extra high even for her, because there's nothing, absolutely nothing, going on around her. She keeps Bonita rushing about double quick, so fast that when she stops, she has the shakes. Midler ransacks herself and invents like a crazy dynamo just to give Jinxed some artificial respiration. She turns it into a one-woman comedy show, but you can see what the effort is costing her, and she carries only part of the picture. She's wasting herself because she selected a stupid script by Bert Blessing, a pseudonym for Frank Gilroy, who wrote The Only Game in Town, which was then reworked by David Newman, and then she picked a director who's wrong for her. Bette Midler is caught in a new bind. Stars of her magnitude can generally choose what they want to appear in, but often they don't take the time or the trouble to make intuitive decisions, the kind of decisions that Midler learned to make in her stage material. It's unlikely that she would have signed to work with Don Siegel if she had looked at even a couple of his recent pictures, say The Shootist and Escape from Alcatraz, and he was never the right director for a musical comedy star. The worst experience of her life was predictable. The debacle probably didn't faze Rip Torn, who has a trick up his sleeve. He saves his slyest blinks and changes of expression for when he's meant to be a corpse. He gives a more entertaining performance dead than alive. Thank you for listening. Please like and comment and subscribe and then do something else.